Hi, I'm Robert James, and welcome to the United States Gemological Institute's webinar on who should be writing jewelry insurance appraisals. This has been a question that has come to me, and actually there's a lot of people asking this question because in the jewelry industry there is no uniform standards or oversight. And there's a lot of people doing jewelry appraisals who honestly should not be. And I've been asked to do this wonderful webinar. I think it's wonderful because it's going to be a lot of fun. But to answer the question, who should be writing jewelry insurance appraisals? And I think during the course of this webinar, you'll get an answer to that. And hopefully by the end, we're going to see who should be writing jewelry appraisals. I would like to start with just a simple introduction to who we are, United States Gemological Institute. We were established in 2004. Formerly the ISG. We were originally an allied teaching center. The teaching concept that we have in the structure was originally an allied teaching center for the Gemological Association of Great Britain. We are currently a continuing education provider with the Texas Department of Insurance, which means that we have courses that have been peer-reviewed and certified by the Department of Insurance for insurance continuing education for insurance licensing. And as part of that, we teach jewelry insurance as well as gemology. So we have a very interesting pedigree here to offer. I will be your host and instructor today. I do have the United States Gemological Institute, which I founded, also the Global Claims Associates, which is an insurance services company, Property and Casualty Adjuster, the Texas Department of Insurance, as well as a continuing education provider. Hold a higher education teaching certificate from Harvard University, business law certificate from Cornell Law School, and other association memberships. My resume can be found on the USGI website. I welcome you to review it if you would like. But I've been in the business a long time, and I've been able to meet some wonderful people and have some wonderful opportunities. I want to start with a look at perhaps who should not be doing jewelry appraisals and the current state of the current jewelry appraisal industry, because there is no oversight, there is no uniform standards, and there's a lot of people doing appraisals that shouldn't be. When I worked at USAA, I was in the gem lab as a forensic gemologist at the USAA Gem Lab, also claims replacement service buyer, and I worked with SIU, Special Investigations Unit. We did a study, and about 95% of the appraisals submitted to us came from people with no appraisal training whatsoever. They were people that said, well, I've been in the business 20 years and I'm just giving you my opinion and that's my appraisal. And that's where and that's all we had to draw from. I mean, a lot of the insurance companies, that's all that they have as an option of accepting appraisals is from people who really have never had any proper training. One of the biggest tells is what we have George here. George was actually created for us by AI. We create George because George is kind of the personification of what the appraisal industry looks like. For a lot. The 95% of the appraisers out there kind of like fit the person of George. When he says, I assume no liability for any action that may be taken on the basis of this appraisal, when we see that, we know we have a problem. And let's see how George works.
You need an insurance appraisal on your ring? Come on in, I do genuine certified appraisals.
George brings him in because he's got a certified jewelry appraisal sign out, and a lot of people believe that George is producing certified appraisals because there's really nothing to stop him.
Here you go. Just take this to your insurance company. It's all you need.
And George seems like he's a certified jewelry appraiser. Now, of course, his office is a little bit more dramatic there, but, you know, that office kind of reflects what the appraisals look like, not so much what perhaps the offices look like. But when George does this, it creates problems because he's not really producing appraisals that are properly done. Let's look at some of those problems and see what this couple is going to have to encounter because of this appraisal.
I'm sorry, we cannot accept this appraisal. Our underwriter says there is too much information missing.
Not a very good start because unfortunately George didn't have it properly done. But there's also a problem with the value.
Our appraiser says the $10,000 ring you sold us is only worth $5,000. You cheated us.
And this is a real world scenario. This isn't something that actually we had obviously AI do this, but nonetheless, it's a real world scenario. This is really happening. It's happened many times where an appraiser lowballs or doesn't understand the values, and they create problems because they issue the appraisal and they say, I'm not responsible for any action. And then here we go, we have the problem, and a jeweler gets falsely accused. But yet there's one more problem that's coming at this couple.
I'm very sorry. But your insurance appraisal value was way below the actual replacement cost. This is all we can pay you.
The insurance company is not responsible for keeping up with what the value is or if the values are updated or anything else. And if the appraisal is too low and the piece cannot be replaced, then this couple unfortunately just simply cannot replace their ring because of the problem with George's appraisal. But what's George up to?
50, 60, 70, 80, 90. This appraisal business is easy money. And I don't have to answer to anyone?
Yep, George is raking in the money, and he's putting his little disclaimer that says, I'm not responsible for anything on this appraisal. This is just my opinion. And then walking away from it and creating chaos for the insured and the insurance company, the adjusters, the underwriters. It's just a real problem, and it's because the appraisal that George is doing is not professional. But what we want to do is take a minute right now, because this is who shouldn't be doing appraisal. Let's look at who should. Let's look at what a professional appraiser will do. First thing, they have a professional education. They take time and get the education. They do scientific examinations. They have experience and a specific methodology for establishing values, clear and complete reporting, and defensible in any arena. If they're questioned in any way, they have everything documented and written to the point that they can absolutely defend anything in the appraisal. That is the difference between George and a professional appraiser. And if we look at the two of these, we very quickly to see who should be doing appraisals and who should not be doing appraisals. Because the fact is, anyone can write an appraisal. Anyone can legally write an appraisal, jewelry appraisal. But that doesn't mean they should be. What has to be done is to be able to be professional and write an appraisal that is defendable. If you have to defend it in court, you're able to. But more than anything else, it's not just an opinion without standards, which is what George does. You have to have a professional with purpose. And let's take a look and see exactly what goes into being a professional appraiser. We're going to start with the 4 steps to appraisal competency. This is going to show us the 4 steps that a properly trained professional jewelry appraiser will take to achieve that goal. If you're going to be a jewelry appraiser, obviously you need to be a good gemologist, and that's going to be important. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the United States are just tunnel vision to GIA, and that's because GIA can spend $900,000 a month on advertising. And that has created the aura, and GIA has become very much a monopoly. But there are outstanding gemology schools out there offering programs that actually, are very important, because you can't, in gemology, you can't just study with one school. You need to go to multiples, because you're going to learn different things with each school. And that's going to be important. Here's a list here of some, and these are some of the more notables that have really great programs. You'll notice that there's a lot more beyond just the GIA, and you need to keep that in mind when you're looking at education. It's one reason that people like me will have an FGA, a GG, and I actually at one time had a CG. And that's because it's important to get as broad of an education as you can in gemology. We have here is not recognized Swiss Gemological Institute. They are a fantastic school. They're a fantastic lab, but the problem is they don't offer a gemology diploma. I see a lot of people with this SSEF SGC title doing appraisals. That's just a 5-day class. you get a certificate of attendance. That's all that SSEF SGC. It's not a gemological diploma, and it should not be used for doing appraisal. And finally, International Gem Society. IGS is great for hobbyists and people that are just doing this for a hobby. But based on my review and others about the IGS gemology program, it is not upstanding if you're going to become professional and start doing professional gemology. So just remember that the first step is to get a really solid gemology education, and that can come from a variety of schools. In fact, it should be, because every school is a portal. It's not a destination. All too often, people get a GI, graduate gemologist diploma, and then they consider themselves appraisers, and they go out and start doing appraisals. Unfortunately, they're not properly trained to be doing appraisals, and that's where a lot of problems come up. There are actually recognized appraisal diplomas that you can earn that will really give you that second step in the competency steps, and that is going to be of course, from our USGI with our Registered Gemologist Appraiser program. American Gem Society has a top-notch appraisal program. And of course, the National Association of Jewelry Appraisers is the ultimate organization, and everyone doing jewelry appraisal should be a member of National Association of Jewelry Appraisers to keep up with the latest trends, to keep up with the best support and education that's ongoing. And that is an absolute must for doing professional appraising. There's also the appraisal societies. You want to study with the USPAP. I will caution people there's an appraisal program being offered by the IGS that is not upstanding. And the certified insurance appraiser is actually a formal insurance industry credential and not something that can be bestowed by a jewelry industry organization. We next look at insurance and legal education, and a lot of appraisers, even though those with gemology and appraisal education, in other words, they've done the first two steps, they haven't done step 3, which is to get in knowledge and training in the insurance and legal field. And when you're writing an insurance appraisal, you are part of a contract. Your appraisal becomes part of a contract. It's called an insurance policy. And somewhere in the process of that, you may be dealing with attorneys. So it's important that you get in knowledge and training in those areas, particularly understanding insurance policies and insurance coverages so that you can better help your clients. These are available online. Here are a few that are listed with the Coursera, EDX, Udemy, and Cornell. The Cornell, I actually earned my business law certificate from Cornell Law School online through that program. And those are all available to you. And also insurance continuing education. You can actually take the same courses that the insurance agents, underwriters, and adjusters take to get their licenses. You can take those, and that will help you better understand what's going on in the insurance industry. It will help you better communicate and interact with underwriters and adjusters and help you better understand exactly the purpose of your appraisal, where it goes, how it impacts your client with their insurance coverage. By getting this advanced knowledge, you're going to make your appraisal services better to your clients. They're going to go smoother with the insurance company and make you more professional and give you a heads up for all the other appraisers that are out there. Step 4 is one of the most important. That's the real world experience. Get out there and get experience. I see too many people get straight out of GIA, they got a graduate gemologist, and they immediately start setting themselves up as an appraiser. Well, you're appraising something you really know nothing about, because unless you've got real-world experience in jewelry, you really don't know anything about the markets. I urge all of my students and graduates, first thing to do is go work in a retail jewelry store. Stand behind that showcase. Greet customers, talk to them, see how they interact. If you really want to understand the jewelry business, the only way to really find out is at the sales counter of a jewelry store. But you can attend jewelry shows, attend webinars, get price lists, always subscribe to industry publications, newsletters, stay ahead of what's going on, because that's going to help you be a more informed jewelry appraiser. I also recommend that you get the InstaPraise software program to do your basic jewelry appraisals for your insurance and other. If you get into expert witness, then there's another issue with that, and that's another course that I teach. But in general, for appraisers that want to use software programs to be able to tie into the Gem Guide and to other resources, Instapraise is going to be one of the best, if not the best. And they did not ask to be here. They didn't pay to be here, and they didn't ask to be here. In fact, they didn't even know they're putting them in. I've reviewed a lot of the appraisal software programs, and the Instapraise platform and system, I think, is one of the best. I would tell you that I do not recommend Brightco. Brightco, when they first came out, they were handing out free appraisal software, and everybody jumped on, and all these people that really had no business doing appraisals suddenly became appraisers because Brightco was handing out this free program to do appraisals. What people didn't know is it was actually an insurance application. When you did the appraisal, that free appraisal with Brightco, they didn't realize that that was sending all the information for that to Brightco, and it was becoming an insurance application. I don't like the way that was done, and quite frankly, it's not something that I recommend to people. It is completely up to you what you feel like is best. I ask you to review those and see, but I do feel like you need to know the background and why that Brightco is not listed here. But absolutely, Instapraise is, and it's going to be one of the most important steps you can take in becoming a professional appraiser. In this next section, we're going to look at insurance appraiser credentials. What credentials do you really need to be a proper insurance appraiser? We already know that there's really no controls, there's no oversight, there's no standards, and anybody can just do anything. I mean, you could take somebody that's framing houses and decide they don't want to frame houses anymore, and the next day they can become a jewelry appraiser. That does not speak well to the structure of our industry, to be honest with you, but it's a reality. But the insurance companies more and more are looking for specific credentials, and they're starting to look far beyond what they were originally doing, which for so many years they were just simply looking for a GIA graduate gemologist. They're starting to understand that they need somebody that's properly trained in appraisal and need somebody who's being a professional appraiser. And we want to take a look at some of those credentials and see what is recommended. The list of appraiser credentials is actually much shorter than the list of gemology schools, mainly because the requirements to actually teach appraisal and understand it are pretty strict, and it's something that you don't find a lot of the gemology schools or anywhere else doing. Our registered gemologist appraiser program, of course, that's based on our registry, our insurance registry of gemologist appraisers that we put out through our Global Claims Associates, which is a member of the National Association of Independent Insurance Adjusters, and our RGA has been very well accepted by the insurance industry. Certified Gemologist Appraiser from the AGS, also top credential in the industry. Unfortunately, you have to be working for a store or be an independent CGA, or ICGA, I should say. But the AGS Certified Gemologist Appraiser is a top quality program. Master Valuer, our dear Anna Miller, which unfortunately left us many years ago, but she developed a program as Master Valuer that continues to be outstanding to this day. And of course, the National Association of Jewelry Appraisers, anywhere from the senior member and up. There's different levels of membership there. You have to work hard to get those memberships, and they mean a lot. They carry a lot of weight, and the member levels are important for you to keep moving upwards. But senior member and above, you're going to be a really fine credentialed appraiser. And then there's international valuers associations in New Zealand, Australia, UK. I know that the quality of what they present and the quality of their credentials is absolutely first rate. A friend of ours, Samantha McLaughlin, in the UK, and we've got some really super folks in New Zealand and Australia that are fantastic. And then, of course, you have the ISA, the ASA, and other organizations that are appraiser credentials in general, but we're looking here just specifically for jewelry appraisal credentials, and that's why you have the list that you have here. So we continue on. Now that we know who should not be doing appraisals, and we know how to look for someone who should be doing appraisals and does the best work at it, let's look at what the insurance companies actually need, because till now we've been looking at what the appraiser needs. But let's take a few minutes and look at what the insurance companies need from you as an appraiser to be able to make their job easier and be able to better protect your insured clients with the appraisal that you provide to them. The first will be documentation. The insurance company needs clear and concise documentation. They don't need you to write a 3 or 4 page report for every item that's in there, and they don't need a big description of the history of diamonds or anything else. They need very specific documentation demonstrating what the piece is, the description of it, the qualities, the photographs, the full documentation that lets them know what is considered to be a proper like, kind, and quality replacement should that claim happen. But they don't need a lot of extra verbiage. I have a lot of people that try to show off by producing multiple page appraisals when in fact, that's not what's necessary. They need very concise and clear documentation of what the item is. Next is going to be replacement methodology. What that means is what you use to achieve the value that you set for the piece in your appraisal. Was it a comparable research? Did you go out and check for comparables in the market? Or did you put the piece on paper and actually take it apart on paper and decide what it would take to replace the diamonds, for instance, the mounting, the labor to put it together, and do the replacement value based on that? You need to be able to fully explain to the insurance adjuster and to the underwriter exactly what the methodology is of your appraisal, because that allows them to duplicate that should a claim be filed and be able to give the client the closest like, kind, and quality replacement possible because they have enough information about how your value is set. Once again, we want to make sure about clear descriptions, not a lot of verbiage. Remember that the customer service reps, who are usually the first ones to get your appraisal when they're being entered into the system in the insurance company, these are not jewelers. They don't understand all the high-tech stuff. If you try to show off scientifically how much you know as a gemologist, you're probably just going to confuse people. And quite frankly, some of your appraisal may not make it into the policy that would be important. You need to have very clear descriptions and descriptions made to where people within the insurance industry can understand it, not somebody that's teaching a gemology class. So be sure with your descriptions that you've got good, clear, concise descriptions that are also complete. And finally is defensible values. You need to establish a value that you can actually defend. Now, what I mean about that, does that mean you're going to go to court? Well, no. Very rarely will you have to go to court to be called on. But the thing is, if you write every value as if you're going to have to defend it in court, you generally will never have to. Because if your value that you establish as the replacement value for insurance is well documented and well researched, then that value is going to hold up, and it's going to hold up in underwriting, it's going to hold up in adjusting, and it's going to be something that you can easily defend because you'll be able to show exactly where it came from. And that's going to be a very important part. And that's going to be the next part of what the insurance companies need, because they need solid values that are based on good market research and communicated through the appraisal so that everyone knows what they're working with when they're working with your appraisal. Next, we want to look at a few video demonstrations of the real cost of poor appraisals, because appraisers who just knock these out and say, well, this is just my opinion and I'm not responsible for any action that may be taken on the basis of this appraisal, they walk away from doing bad appraisals and oftentimes they don't realize exactly what type of problems they create and just how far it goes. And I thought it would be fun to let AI create a few scenarios that come from real world. These are not just made up. These come from my experience as not only an insurance adjuster, but also as an expert witness handling a lot of cases involving problems with appraisers. And I wanted to share this with you all because I think it's important for everybody to see the cost of poor appraisals.
But it's not our fault. Our appraiser was supposed to send you that information, but we have not been able to contact him.
We start with claim delays. Appraisals that are not done properly, that are missing information or have information that's not properly formatted or described, those create claims delays. And if somebody's having problems, it may be they're having problems getting an insurance policy issued and getting coverage, or they've had a claim and they're having a problem getting that claim paid because the insurance did not have enough information. And the appraiser becomes difficult to find, or perhaps just doesn't cooperate, because we see that happen a lot. That's one of the first problems with the cost of poor appraisals.
I understand, but our jeweler says the cost to replace our ring is more than that. I don't care about the appraisal value. You owe us a replacement ring.
All too often when this kind of thing happens, people blame the insurance company. They'll say, well, you should have known. You should have known the appraisal was undervalued or overvalued or whatever. And they'll blame the insurance company because of a problem that the appraiser created. And the insurance company accepts the appraisal that the insured hands in, and they set the policy limits based on that appraisal. And if the appraisal is incorrect, it's not the insurance company's fault. It's the appraiser's fault. But all too often, by this point in time, the insured blames the insurance company, and the big fight ensues, and it's all because of the problems with the appraisal itself. But the insurance companies are not appraisers. They're not responsible for evaluating the appraisal down to that level. What they're responsible for is accepting the appraisal and then being able to issue the policy. And then in the issue of a claim, then they have to go by what the policy says. They can't go on what the appraiser should have said, and that becomes one of the big problems.
That is all you will pay us, but we have been paying premiums for twice that value on our appraisal. It's the appraiser's fault? Seriously?
Absolutely. If the appraiser has issued an inflated appraisal, if they have tried to make, let's say a jeweler's trying to make a customer feel good about a purchase and said, oh, I'm selling it to you for $10,000, but it would cost $20,000 to replace. In fact, I better appraise this for $20,000 because if you had to replace it today, if I had to get it again for you today, it would cost $20,000. I've heard that. I've owned a jewelry store. I've been in the jewelry business a long time. I know how all that works. And you write an appraisal and you say, take this to your insurance company. This is what it needs to be appraised for, knowing full well that that's hugely inflated. And then the insured has to pay premiums on that. And then when it comes time to have a replacement or something happens to it, then they get a real wake-up call because the insurance company can replace it for far less. And then they blame the insurance company for it. They say, well, I've been paying these premiums, I need the money. But the problem is most policies, you don't just get the money, you get the cost to replace. But yet the insurance company gets blamed. There's a big fight between the insured and the insurance company. The appraiser doesn't get pulled into it, and yet the appraiser, whoever did the appraisal, is the one responsible for all the chaos and the one who should be held responsible. In fact, an insured can go against an appraiser to get back those excess premiums in case of an inflated appraisal. This is a huge problem that happens quite often.
My appraiser says you switched my diamond when you sized it. I have called the police and want you arrested.
This is absolutely a real-world situation. About a year and a half ago, I had a case. I was called as an expert witness case in Virginia of someone had been falsely accused of switching a diamond out. And it's an issue that jewelers have to face every once in a while. Somebody doing an appraisal maybe shouldn't be, or maybe it's a competitor down the street that's doing an appraisal and wants to create problems for a competitor on the other end of the street. There's any number of ways that this happens, but jewelers quite often can get accused of doing things like this when in fact it's not true. But when it happens, generally the customer is so irate and so angry that we've had some that called the police and filed felony charges against a jeweler we had to defend them against. And then we also have had situations where people have gone all over town and they spread the word all over town. Oh, this person ripped me off. She ripped me off totally. This happens because appraisers, some of the appraisers, the ones who should not be doing appraisals, are out there doing this, and they don't really care because they think, well, I'm not responsible for anything that may happen as a result of this appraisal. And in fact, they don't realize just how much damage they do because they really don't do their appraisal in a professional manner and assign a value that is realistic and do some research and looking into what the piece is. They're just simply throwing a price out there and saying, there it is, good luck with it. And this is a very real scenario that can happen because of a poor appraisal. Finally, let's look at building confidence. We've established who should not be doing appraisals. We've established who should be doing appraisals and the type of quality that they should be producing in their appraisals. We've looked at what happens with some of the poorly done appraisals and the impact. But what about building confidence with your clientele? What about building confidence with the insurance industry? Let's look at some steps you can take to really build that confidence, and in doing so, you're going to build your business as a professional jewelry appraiser. The first will be continuing education. Every other profession in the world, I think, has to do continuing education. I don't care if you're a cosmetician, you're a barber, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, they have to do continuing education. The jewelry industry, and particularly the appraisal industry, is the only place that none's required. And I can't tell you how many people go to GIA, they get their GG, and they think, okay, that's it. I am set. I'm ready. That's all I need, and that's all the education they ever get. Actually, the GIA has some absolutely fantastic continuing education opportunities. We have them here at the USGI. The American Gem Society has them, and certainly the National Association of Jewelry Appraisers has outstanding continuing education. You should absolutely avail yourself of continuing education. You should require yourself to take continuing education and branch out like what we talked about. Get over into the legal field, get into the insurance field, get educated. The more educated you are, first thing, the better your resume looks. And beyond that, you have a better opportunity of working with other professionals because you're going to understand how they operate. So the first step in building that confidence is going to be maintaining your continuing education. The next step in confidence building will be ethics. And this is something else that is not required in the jewelry industry, appraisal industry, that almost every other profession has, which is a requirement to be continually studying ethics. When I was getting my insurance license, and every time that I have renewed my license, I've had to do a certain amount of hours, 3 hours actually, of classroom ethics. And ethics are something that we have to continue to study. We have to keep it at the forefront. We need to make sure that everyone understands that we're going to do the right thing every time with every client. And all too often, people don't think of ethics when it comes to the jewelry industry, I can tell you. And certainly in the appraisal industry, the jewelry appraisal industry, we need to have a better focus on ethics. And we are teaching, the USGI, actually, we have the only standalone course in ethics. And that is something that we push and that we require. And the same thing that happens with NAJA and the AGS, ethics is a big part of who we are and what we do. And as a jewelry appraiser, a professional appraiser, you need to be sure that you are maintaining the highest level of ethics. And next will be maintaining your professional standards. Never let go of them. Maintain consistency, accuracy. As you can see, AI could not spell objectivity. You need to make sure that you are keeping objectivity in the appraisal you're doing. Transparency of what you're doing, of the work you do and who you are, and accountability, so that if someone calls in and says, I need more information about this appraisal and who did it, you will have your information and everything will be right there for them to be sure that you maintain professional standards and then never let those professional standards go. Never let anybody talk you into, we're going to let you get by with that or we're going to let that happen. Maintain those professional standards because those professional standards speak to who you are and who you are as a professional. So that's something that you always want to keep in mind, is maintaining a consistent professional standard. And finally, is specialized insurance appraisal training. You should always look for the opportunity to get specialized training. NAJA has got a beautiful program that they do at Tucson each year, and I believe that they do them a couple more times during the year. It's something that the specialized insurance appraisal training is something that's ongoing because insurance laws change. Insurance laws, in fact, will be different in every state. And sometimes they're different in counties. It's something that you've got to always stay up on what is going on within the insurance industry and what's going on within the insurance industry requirements for appraisal and for property coverage. And that's something that keeps you going because you need specialized insurance appraisal training on an ongoing basis. This is part of your continuing education and something that you need to always stay with because it's going to keep your appraisals accurate, up to date, and professional. In our final slide, I want to remind everyone that every jewelry appraisal represents someone's trust. If you think about it, a jewelry appraiser is part of the insurance world. The jewelry appraisal actually goes into that policy. It becomes something, and that appraisal is used to help protect the interest of that client. And the client relies on the appraiser to be accurate and have everything in there that's needed to make sure they're covered in case of a loss. And that is a trust. It's a trust that we accept as professional jewelry appraisers. We accept that we're responsible for that trust from clients. And we have to take that seriously because when someone puts that trust in us to produce a document, then that document's going to be used to help protect them and protect their precious jewelry, rings, diamonds, earrings, all kinds of things. That is a trust that we accept that we need to always keep in mind is important and something that we need to protect. We obviously need to make it defensible. We've got to issue appraisals that we know has been properly done, contains all the proper information, has been formatted properly, and has a value that is a true and accurate value for insurance replacement in the industry, and we can defend that in case somebody questions us. But beyond going to that level, we also have to realize that when someone brings a jewelry item to us to be appraised for their insurance policy, they are trusting us. And we need to always remember to protect that trust, to defend that trust, because that's what keeps people coming back. That's what keeps people telling others that, yes, you can go to this jewelry appraiser because they're great. And that's a trust that people have, and they spread that trust around. And when that happens, that helps establish you as a professional. So please always remember that every jewelry appraisal represents someone's trust, and never take that for granted and never let it go. I appreciate very much you being here, being a part of this. We're going to be doing some more of these, but this one was actually by request to produce this, and we have made this special edition just for posting here. We do the regular webinars generally on Thursday nights, but we have a lot of people that can't make it, and we try to produce an edition like we have here. It's a kind of a condensed version of it, but it's got all the information from the original webinar, and I hope that this has been of service to you. If there's any questions, please contact me. You can get us at usgemology.com. That link will come up in just a minute, but I want to tell you that I appreciate you being here, and I'll look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much.